ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. This past week, we got the final issue of the Cheetah and Cheshire rob the Justice League issue, and there was I guess you could call it a bombshell reveal. It was kind of an obvious one if you just didn't know what to pay attention to. And it was revealed that this character, Alia Ratko, otherwise known as Featherweight, is trans. When we're first introduced to her, we see her literally almost put her entire fist through an armored vehicle. So for a character named Featherweight, it's kind of a misnomer, and it's pretty much hammered home at multiple points that this is the case. And she's also revealed to be superhumanly durable as well. But the reason why she comes into play is because, well, as the title of the series would have you believe, Cheetah and Cheshire, two characters who are, under normal circumstances, villains for heroes like Wonder Woman and Green Arrow, respectively. The reason why Featherweight comes into play is because she is being recruited to help them rob the Justice League, like break into the Watchtower, take whatever it is that they want. And this is where we kind of get into some of the issues that I've seen some people have with Featherweight. I'm gonna go ahead and just say off top, I don't have a whole heap of a lot of a problem with this character, but I'm gonna say my opinion on the matter carries a lot less weight being a whole straight cisgender dude. I don't really have any skin in the game on this matter, like on a personal level, outside of having children who are, you know, in some spectrum of that part of the community. The issue I have seen, and I want to make it clear, I'm glad that DC is introducing a new trans character, but I also gotta admit that I agree with some of the people that are part of the trans community who have been very vocal about the fact that they don't particularly care for this type of representation, or at some form or factor take issue with aspects of how the character was introduced. And one of the things I've seen come under fire the most is how the character introduces herself to the rest of the group. When she is introduced, she approaches the rest of the team and basically says, I guess people call me Featherweight. It's a joke because I'm kind of small, obviously, but my name's Alia Ratko. Please don't call me Al. That said, I kind of get where they're coming from. It kind of plays two different ways, honestly. Like, I mean, obviously, she doesn't want to be called Al for short because, well, for one, it seems like she's not particularly fond of being called Al, but it could also allude to the fact that her name, or rather her dead name, was probably something closer to Al, like Albert or something like that. So it probably is something she doesn't care for. She's setting boundaries. That's a normal thing. But I think the issue that I think a lot of people are having, and it's one I actually have with this character, is that, well, I am perfectly fine with there being representation for a trans character in the DC universe. I do think it's a little bit on the nose. Like, it's almost trying too hard. Like, and we gotta admit, this is something that was done by Greg Rucka, who is a man well into his 50s. So he's probably not the best person to be bringing this sort of thing to bear. It probably would have been better coming from someone maybe a little bit younger who is not to say Greg's out of touch, but I mean, once again, 50-something-year-old dude, you're writing this, which, I'm not saying Greg's a bad writer, but he's a fantastic writer. But it kind of reminds me, just with everything that's being done with this, like the way that Alia is introduced. She's introduced by basically walking in the door wearing trans flag colors, basically just giving the whole game away that she is a trans character. So it's kind of like, okay, so we took this character, we wanted to have a trans character, so we had her pull up on the scene wearing trans colors, and we have her saying and doing, quotey fingers, quote, quote, trans things. Another interesting aspect about Alya is that she introduces herself as a granddaughter of Ra's al Ghul. So I thought that was pretty interesting little tidbit. And there's even some mentions at various other points about other members of the Bat family. She points out her relation to Damien and so on and so forth. If you're wondering exactly who she is actually related to Ra's al Ghul through, it is not through Talia al Ghul, it's actually through Nisa Ratko, a character a lot of y'all, I would actually forgive you if you didn't remember, but she is also a Greg Rucka creation. She popped up in and around the time that Greg Rucka was writing Detective Comics back in, I believe it was Detective Comics 738 back in 2003. And she kind of jumped around a little bit here and there. You would see her in other Batman books, Batgirl, as well as the JSA Classified and things of that nature. And then she was ultimately killed off and was effectively a car bombing back in, I believe it was in 2006 or 2008. In Robin number 148. And she has largely just kind of disappeared from comics as a result of that. And then of course, with everything being kind of merged together, the different versions of the DC universe kind of becoming this one singular entity as opposed to a bunch of separate continuities, I guess it stands to reason that she is still alive, because Alya does mention that she is still alive. So there is that. And kind of getting back to the whole dead name part of it, it's very highly likely, just based on some digging that I did when going back to Nisa Ratko's first appearance, it's highly likely that that was actually Alya's first appearance. When we're first introduced to Nisa, she is giving birth to a son named Daniel, and we never really see that kid ever again. And because of the nature of comics that everything works on a sliding time scale, it's incredibly possible the Alya who stands before us actually debuted over 20 years ago. We just didn't know it because that child was in fact trans and grew up to become the Alya Ratko who stands before us now. And could be potentially really interesting storytelling to dig into should we actually be privileged enough to get this character to come back again and maybe get a little more character development. But more on that later. Now this is just issue 3. It's not until issue 6 where she actually comes out and says that she's trans, and I think that part of it is actually handled a lot better than maybe some other aspects of it. Like case in point, when Clarion, the witch boy who has been crushing on her ever since he first laid eyes on her, once everything is wrapped up, she mentions that she's gonna go run off and deal with some anti-LGBTQ sentiment elsewhere in the world. And it's kind of at this point where Clarion starts putting 2 and 2 together that maybe she might be part of that community if it was not obvious from how A, she carries herself, B, the colors that she wears, and how she basically kind of told everybody, more or less, in a very indistinct and clumsy way. She says right here, yes, I am the B and T. And it kind of goes on from there, basically letting you know that she's both bisexual and trans. Once again, I do appreciate how this is written, just in so much that Clarion does not have a negative reaction to it. He doesn't suddenly go, oh, well, screw this. No, Clarion, I think, becomes even more interested in Alya because of that, or at least his feelings towards her does not change. But as I have seen people who I both know and don't know talk about this on socials today, it kind of made me think, like, you know what, this is kind of an oddball thing. Case in point, Alice in Winter Wonderland, who's a friend of the channel, basically kind of said everything I felt that needed to be said. So DC introduced a bi and trans character named Alya, aka Featherweight, and it's a little on the nose. Now, Alice goes on to talk about the connection to Ra's al Ghul, but also points out that this is not the first trans character that we have ever had in DC Comics, despite the fact that everyone's trying to act as though this is the case. People forget about the fact that Bia, a character who was introduced in the Nubia series, written by Vita Ayala and Stephanie Williams, that was a character that was introduced. Granted, she was more of a supporting character and kind of got lost to the dustbin of history because she didn't really feature in anything outside of those Nubia books, but she was a total thing. And I remember people getting really upset about her being a thing. So it wasn't like no one knew she existed. And we also can't forget about the more recently introduced character Dreamer, who debuted on the Supergirl CW TV show, but also became part of DC Comics canon not that terribly long ago, even being written by the actress who portrayed her on television. Nicole Maines actually got to write the character for the comics, and I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, people are acting brand new about this. Like, Alia is, the first of her kind, which, I mean, I guess if you really want to keep it a buck, she's the first trans character in DC Comics canon to maybe not be a throwaway character, who I guess technically got her start in the comics first, as opposed to being someone that was created for TV and then ported over to the comics. I guess you could say that, but even then, it's still not a true statement. But I mean, once again, whether she's the first, second, last, or the 50th, I don't really care about that. The thing is that I feel like, yes, this is representation, and it's good to have that representation, but sometimes representation can be misguided. And I kind of look no further than when Marvel had erroneously come up with the idea to reintroduce the New Warriors. This is actually what it was kind of giving, only maybe not quite as terrible, and maybe only by virtue of the fact that it wasn't a bunch of characters, it's just the one character. Maybe that's why it doesn't, I guess, ring as cringe as maybe it probably could have. But I remember when the New Warriors were going to be relaunched and they introduced all these characters like Safe Space and what was it, Snowflake, and was a Trailblazer and B Negative and Screen Time. They were basically just characters who were just all like hot button words that were kind of a thing at the time the book was going to be relaunched, and they were kind of piss poor. Yeah, I'll keep it a buck, and that's me saying that as someone who is friendly with the person who conceived that idea. It just kind of is what it is. But no, it was like these people, they were so cringe that people still talk about them today as if it actually happened. Those characters never saw the light of day, really. I think outside of maybe B Negative. I think B Negative actually did see the light of actual day, which is kind of funny considering he's supposed to be like a vampiric type of character. But yeah, the other characters like Snowflake and Safe Space, they never actually made it anywhere. Like that whole concept got shut down just based off social media reaction alone. But that's kind of how I feel about this. Is like, this character, Alia, she has a dismissive superhero name, calling her Featherweight. I guess it's one of those things. I kind of feel this way about some characters. Some characters can have really cool names, and some characters can just have really lame names. And sometimes they outgrow those lame names and get new ones, or that lame name somehow becomes a badge of honor at some point. I don't know. We don't know where it's gonna go for her. We don't even know if this character is even gonna show up again, because I'll keep it a buck with you. A lot of these characters like this, they usually get lost to the dustbin of history because people either respond negatively to them, or the company that is behind this character does not really want to support that character being in anything. That's usually what happens. And considering the fact that Dreamer has been handled a little bit better than other characters that are trans in the DC universe, but even Dreamer kind of gets all right, get over there for a little bit. DC loves to wheel Dreamer out, around Pride Month, basically, or whenever there's like, I guess, something specific going on. But like, yeah, we don't really see her much, if ever, anywhere else. I mean, yeah, she kind of popped up as an important part of Absolute Power in 2024, but case in point, she had a whole Suicide Squad series, and guess when it came out? Don't get me wrong, it started earlier in the year, like I think around March, but they made sure that last issue came out in June. I'm just keeping it a buck with you on how that works. But yeah, anyway, I'm of two minds about this. Like, I want to see more of this character, I want to be happy for this character, and I am happy for trans people everywhere who can feel like they have seen themselves represented in some way. But I gotta admit, I also feel kind of bad for the trans community in this, because okay, you got a character who you can be representative of your community, and it's a character that kind of feels cheap. Like it feels and maybe a character we might not even see again is my biggest concern. I feel like if you're gonna stand 10 toes down on it, don't just stand 10 toes down in June. Don't just stand 10 toes down when it seems convenient. Stand 10 toes down all the time. Like, okay, DC got their press release moment. Okay, now what? Are you gonna give this character a series? Are you gonna give this character their own book? Are you gonna put this character in more comics outside of just this? Or is this character gonna get lost to the dustbin of history the same way that another trans character was, like Bia? Bia debuted in 2021 to little or no fanfare from DC Comics. Like, yes, I saw Vita Ayala, and yes, I saw Stephanie Williams big upping the character, but like I don't remember seeing DC say much, if anything, about Bia. Maybe outside of like retweeting or resharing or whatever, what Vita and Stephanie had said about the character. And I didn't see any other news outlets big upping Bia hitting the scene. Maybe it was because Bia was an Amazon and they didn't really know what Bia could do. I don't know. But Bia was a character that I think has just been forgotten about. But cute little white trans girl comes along and is like, oh yeah. Like, and here's the thing, I actually thought Bia's introduction as a trans character was handled infinitely better. Like, we didn't put the whole comic on pause to announce with trumpets that Bia was trans. It was said in a way that if you knew, you knew. And if you didn't, well, maybe you just didn't. And maybe that also might be, to Bia's detriment. I don't know, but I feel like, the way this was handled was ham-fisted. And once again, I'm a straight cis dude, so my opinion probably does not matter as much to some people. But I have seen plenty of trans people who have the same opinion of this that I do, that, while it's kind of like a thanks, but, man. That's kind of what it feels like. Anyway, I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about Featherweight. If you've been reading Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League, been reading that series. I don't know. Let me know what you think about it. I've enjoyed it. I actually thought that it was a nice little departure from like the normal Justice League shenanigans, and I highly recommend it. But anyway, if you want to see more videos like these, hit that like button. Also, make sure that you hit the subscribe button as well. Tap the notification bell. Hit all notifications. That way you don't miss anything. And also, while you're here, if you're watching this on mobile, swipe left, or is it right, on the comment section and use the new hype feature. It really helps the channel out. Anyway, thank you all so much. Keep it plus ultra in the comments till next time. We out of here. Peace out.